As we round out our 2025 NFL preseason coverage, we land on the Las Vegas Raiders. And we all can agree in recent history that the Raiders have been a model of instability. And it started with their head coaching choices. So with Pete Carroll coming in as head coach and Tom Brady behind the scenes, as we rate their offseason and what they did, do they finally have some stability in the room, and can they compete in the AFC West this 2025 season? Let's get into it. The Las Vegas Raiders in 2025 are looking like a new regime. Hopefully, I'm sure Raiders fans are very hopeful that this is finally it. We've had a lot of turnover and a lot of dysfunction when it comes to the head coaching choices, the personnel decisions. A lot has gone wrong with Raiders Nation, and not a lot has gone right. Again, you've probably been able to squeeze more out of that lemon than you thought you could in recent years, but it's not been great in the past several years. I mean, going down to back as far as the Gruden situation, John Gruden being dismissed, your selection of Josh McDaniels, which was a total complete disaster, and Antonio Pierce, interim coach, you gave him a one-year deal. That didn't work out. So you turn your tables and turn your attention to Pete Carroll, who is getting back into the ranks after being gone a year from Seattle. So I would argue that, Pete Carroll, if nothing else, is a culture setter, a stability, generator, somebody that can definitely get a lot of the kinks and a lot of dysfunction out of the room. So I do believe that was a great decision by the Raiders to finally get some stability in the house. Now, I do believe that, we've seen what he's done in Seattle. There is a clear ceiling with what Pete Carroll can do and will do. He did win a Super Bowl. We should have won two. But, we're not going to cry over spilled milk. But I do believe that a lot of what happened with the Chargers and Jim Harbaugh has turned around. I think that same can be said for the Raiders once Pete Carroll really gets his hands on his franchise and digs deep into, establishing what he wants to establish as far as a culture is concerned. Because people have to understand that culture is definitely an underrated skill. Establishing and developing a culture, what Dan Campbell has done with the Detroit Lions, what Jim Harbaugh has done with the Chargers, and what Pete Carroll hopes to do with the Raiders is definitely something that you need, especially when you have a model of, abject dysfunction, running rampant through your halls, right? So with him coming in and establishing some stability with this franchise, I think they're trending up. And I do believe that it's indicative of what Pete Carroll is and what he can bring to this organization and the front office as a whole with their regime changes. I do believe that you see a clear difference. I think you see a clear difference in what they're building. Now, I'm not going to sit in and say that they're definitely, on the cusp of being a division winner right now, right here at this very moment of 2025, but I do believe they're building. So let's discuss what they've done in the offseason, free agency and the draft, and what the outlook is going to look like, what the schedule is going to be, what their win total could be. Let's get into it all, and we'll give our full breakdown of the Raiders 2025 season in this preseason preview. So I want to start by saying I absolutely love, I'm no hater when it comes down to, NFL, analyst breakdowns. Regardless of me being a Chargers fan or not, I do believe that when you do a good job, I can salute you, and I can definitely give you praise for that. I'm an NFL analyst on this channel. I'm not just a Chargers fan. I am an analyst. So I try to give my objective opinion where I could possibly give it. So, and that being said, I do believe the Raiders have definitely smashed their offseason. They're one of the better off seasons I've seen a team have in quite some time. And I do believe that's indicative of what the regime is. So in talking about their free agency period to start off, they did a lot of moves. They did a lot of work in the offseason. They had a lot of holes to fill in his roster, and they did their best with the money that they had to fill them. Now, everything wasn't great, and we'll get down to the bottom of what the last person on this list is. But they definitely went out and got some guys that have some noteworthiness and some notoriety when it comes down to their ability to play football in the 2025 season. So, they definitely staked their claim. They definitely made their marks, and they definitely can bring a lot of veteran leadership to this team. So going out and starting out with getting Jeremy Chin from the Panthers, it's almost like they swapped safeties, right? They took Jeremy Chin from the Panthers, and they took Trevor Morag from the Raiders over to the Panthers. So it's like they swapped, right? So 2 years, $60 million deal, well deserved. I think he's a great safety in his league. I think he's going to play great for this team. I think he's going to be the anchor and the leader of this team. He might be the best player outside of Max Crosby on this particular regime, in this particular outfit of the 2025 season for the defense. Definitely going to be a good playmaker. I like that move. It was a great move. It was, bar none, that was one of the better moves they made in the offseason. Then we got Alex Kappa, guard, which they sorely needed. The O-line was definitely in flux. They needed a stable guard. We got him, 2 years, $11 million. They got Eric Stokes from the Packers, 1 year, $4 million deal, which I thought was an absolute steal. I think that, him next to Jair Alexander was an underrated combo. I really believe that him and Jair Alexander in Green Bay was an underrated combo, and I think that I even eyed him if the Chargers potentially signing him as a free agent. I think he's a really good man cover corner. I think he really can play real good defense in the secondary. So I think they got to steal with Eric Stokes coming in at $4 million. I really do. It's only a 1 year deal, but I think he's going to prove that and then some. And they probably re-sign him if they're smart because he can play ball. And then we got Landon Roberts, a linebacker, to help that room out. And the veteran leader, a journeyman for sorts. He's been over a few different teams, I believe recently is the Patriots and things of that nature. So bringing him on a 1 year deal, $3 million. Without got Raheem Mostert to add to their running back room, who they ultimately drafted will probably be their guy. But Raheem Mostert is being a reserve guy is not a bad combo either. Then we all gotten Devin White from the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and the Eagles. He bounced around a little bit. I'm still trying to understand what's happening with Devin White. I really don't. He was a legit budding superstar in Tampa Bay, and he hasn't really caught on yet since he's left Tampa Bay, which is really weird. Tampa Bay didn't want to pay him. They moved on from him. He bounced around to a couple of teams nice with the Raiders. So hopefully he can get things done here with a 1 year deal with them and start playing good football in 2025. He can get right back on track and get his season, get a nice deal to kind of round out his career. Because he's probably due at least one more good payday if he can show that he can still do it at elite level. So I'm hoping that he can find his way in Vegas. Because I really like Devin White's talent. I even wanted him on the Chargers when he got let go from Tampa Bay. So that tells you how much I adore his ability to play linebacker. So really not sure exactly what's going on, with that. Maybe he has personal things going on, but hopefully he sticks in Vegas and gets paid from them. Sign Ian Thomas, the backup tight end, which is a kind of a third option because you got Michael Mayer, who they drafted 2 years ago. Then now you got a Brock Bowers. So I'm not sure where Ian Thomas is going to fit in, but hey, you need depth. Signed D lineman Loki Fotu, another interior D lineman who they need. When I got another safety, Lonnie Johnson Jr., another solid player like that. They re-signed Malcolm Kuntz to a 1 year, $12 million deal after he played stellar last year. I like that signing. Re-signed Adam Butler, D lineman, 3 years, $16 million. This is a great signing as well. They extended Max Crosby, paid him 3 years, $106. He got paid well deserved for his production. They also extended their safety Isaiah Polumalo, 2 years, $8.45 million. So that was a good deal. In releases, they got rid of Gardner Minshew, who we'll get to why they got rid of Gardner Minshew in a minute. Released their center Andre James, in favor of Jackson Powers Johnson, who's a budding superstar who they drafted 2 years ago. I think he's right to be the center for this team, so they got rid of Andre James. And then they got rid of Christian Wilkinson here recently in the last week. Released out of his $100 million deal after 1 year. Injured after 5 games last year. Came in the camp still not healthy. On top of having some other external issues going on with him. A lot of I guess you say locker room issues, we're going to call it. So, he was unceremoniously released, which hurts his defense because I do believe that him coming back with Mike Crosby and a budding Malcolm Kuntz, and maybe Tyree Wilson shows up as some facet on the edge as well to be a third edge rusher, could have been a big time formidable D line. But with Christian Wilkins not anchoring the interior no more, it definitely makes it a lesser unit. So I'm worried about that particular aspect of it. But the Raiders had to do what they had to do. Some people aren't. Sometimes the juice wasn't worth the squeeze. You have to cut bait with guys that disrupt your locker room. And I understand. And this is a new regime. Christian Wilkins was signed under the old regime. So the moment you start to disrupt things, it causes more problems off the field than you're doing on the field, which they still hadn't gotten back on the field before the injury last season. They just had to end up cutting bait. You doing your things that disrupt players and make them angry with you. Could resort to violence in certain cases. You can't have that in your locker room. I'm sorry. And I do believe that, I will say this about Christian Wilkinson, you being a disruptor, the Miami kind of let it slide, but they let you walk. They didn't bother to even think about paying you. Raiders took a gamble on you, quote unquote, and you burned yourself. And that might be it for you. I ain't gonna lie. It might be it. I don't know if he's going to be resigned by anybody else because he's such a distraction off the field. You don't have a clean bill of health with your foot, allegedly, and on top of that, you seem to be bothering people in a improper way, off the field. So you just may be too much to even decide to deal with, even if you're desperate, you just probably decide to, I'd rather go with a young guy and develop with no problems versus having a guy that's going to disrupt my locker room. So a very important underrated aspect of you having a stable locker room. So I get why they did it. And, you had to fight this grievance about his guarantee money, but he's not going to be on the Vegas Raiders going forward. So we'll see how things go. But yeah, I understand what he did. But outside of that, I think they had a stellar free agency period. And moving on to the draft, I might be more excited about the draft than I was in the free agency period. They didn't have a great season last year, obviously under Antonio Pierce, so they were picking high and had a lot of draft picks. I think they had one. I think might have the most draft picks out of anybody in the 2025 draft. As you can see on the screen, it's a lot to discuss here, and a lot of names that I actually mocked in my draft coverage about guys that are underrated and could be big time sleepers, and they picked up a lot of these guys that were on my list. Number one was Ashton Jesse. Obviously, that's a no brainer there. One of the best or most stellar running backs coming out of college in the 2025 draft. Had to pick him up. When the second round, got Jack Besh from TCU. Now, Jack Besh is an interesting prospect. I can't say enough about Ashton Jesse. He's going to be a superstar. I don't think there's no question about that. It's just the issue of them picking Jack Besh in the second round over maybe some other talents, because Jack Besh is a weird, I guess you can say, prospect, because he was a former tight end converted to a wide receiver. He's kind of that tweener kind of guy where he doesn't have the speed of a prototypical outside receiver, but he has the size of a tight end, so he's kind of like in between. But he's not big enough to be inline tight end. He's going to be blocking anybody, so he's technically a wide receiver, but he has a tight end frame. It's really odd. It's really odd. So I'm going to be very interested to see how he carves out a role in on his offense as being a second round pick. I'm not sure because I don't think he has the elite ability to separate. But if he bulked up a little bit and became a tight end, I think he would be better off. I'm looking at a Darren Waller kind of arc, Darren Waller type of arc, him, his particular stature and things of that nature. I mean, even looking at Rondé Gaskins, who was, it was a more slender frame in college, but he bulked up in the offseason. He put on about 10 or 15 pounds already. So if you get into that mold and start building yourself more as of a tight end, now maybe not on this team, because hell, they got a Pro Bowl tight end already, Brock Bowers, and a good one in Michael Mayer. So you might not fit that role on this team, but you could somewhere. So it's just weird about Jack Best. I'm a little concerned about his fit with the Raiders as a wide receiver. I really am. But the third round pick, I love. I mean, I think that Darian Porter is a highly, highly underrated corner. I mean, we're talking 6'3", 200 some pounds, over 40 inch vertical, runs a 4.3 40. I mean, he is a zone coverage demon. I'm telling you. You cannot throw the ball around him in zone coverage. I'm just going to tell you that right now. Now, I think you might need a little bit of practice, a little bit of refinement in his man coverage. But listen, if he can stick close to you with that frame, even in man coverage, he's going to be a problem. I think they got an absolute smash and steal in the third round with Darian Porter. I was very high on Darian Porter. I looked at him and Maxwell Harrison as a bona fide steal no matter who got him. So I think they're both are going to be good in this league, and I think that Darren Porter is another steal. And it's a growing trend what the Raiders seem to do. They seem to steal good corners that I like, and they always seem to pan out. So Darren Porter's on my list again because I was high on Jacorian Bennett a couple of years ago for them, and he's been playing well for them. So teaming these two up for the next few years is a great option. Third round, after that, they went out and got Caleb Rogers, who was a tackle in college for Texas Tech, but they have him slated as a guard in this particular offense. He's listed as a guard on the roster. So although he played tackle in college, I think they're going to slide him into a guard in the pro level. So that's what they did there. In the third round, again, they had third round picks. Jesus, that's a tongue twister. 3 third round picks, and they went out and got Charles Grant. Now, Charles Grant played left tackle all his career in William and Mary in college. Now, they just signed Colton Miller to a long-term extension. So I would say that for sure that he's not going to play left tackle. But because of his talent level, his size, his strength, his power, his ability to move, I think Charles Grant is another steal. And the only thing about it is they kind of do what they did with Joe Alton, move him to right tackle. Because they definitely need help at right tackle. Because DJ Glaze right now, I think you can have an upgrade there. I think you can upgrade at that position. I like Colton Miller, obviously. You got Alex Capo on the right side. You got Jackson Powers Johnson at the center. If you need a right tackle. Need a right tackle. I think that even Dylan Parham, who I was high on 3 years ago, is a good left guard. I would say you need a solid right tackle to solidify this line. And I think if Charles Grant can move over to right tackle and play well, I think they're solid. But it's just a matter of whether or not he can do it. Some players can transition and be athletic enough to do it, and some people just play that position only, and that just is what it is. So I'm not sure, but if he can move over to right tackle, that'd be great for the Raiders. It will be. Now, number 4 in the 4th round, 108, they got Dante Thornton, who's an absolute burner. I would think you line him up in a slot and let him stretch the field. Really good kick returner / slot receiver. I would say he's a slot receiver in the league. I mean, he played all 3 positions in college, at Tennessee. But I think that his size, his frame, his speed, you want to move him around and move him and bounce him around different areas and create mismatches with his speed. I think that's what you probably end up doing with this particular talent and skill level. So I think he'll be that. Tonka Hemingway, another 4th round pick, a D lineman, what they sorely need, especially with losing Christian Wilkinson. They doubled down with that with JJ Packers, who I was high on. Is a good run stopping DT out of Ole Miss. So with hopefully JJ Tonka and the others they got in free agency will go help build this D line, because Christian Wilkinson is leaving is a big loss. And hopefully they, I guess you can say collectively, can fill a void of him. But right now they got a big hole in the interior D line. They really do. In the 6th round, they went out and got a quarterback. Actually, double down on quarterbacks. They got Tommy Malott from Montana State and Cam Miller from North Dakota State. Kind of a reach picks there. But then went and got Cody Linderbaum out of Minnesota, who I was high on. Is a really good linebacker out of Minnesota. Really good run stopping linebacker. So yeah, I think they did overall. I mean, I saw the quarterback picks. I'm really high on what they did in this draft. I think they smashed it. I think they probably, out of the side of this 2 6-rounders at the end. Yeah, I mean, slam dunk draft. I give them an 80+ on the draft. It's great. That's a great move. And again, a lot of sleeper picks, a lot of picks that are probably paying out that people didn't grade high in the draft class. So, I'm looking at Darren Porter and Charles Grant as being household names if they can get right in the NFL. So look out for them. So moving on to trades. Now, the big trade of the organization of the offseason was Geno Smith. Pete Carroll went out and got his guy from Seattle, who he brought in while he was there in his last run after Russ was traded. So he went out and got him to add some stability to the room. Now, he not only went out and got him, but he paid him. So he's going to be his quarterback for the next 3 years. So I'm lukewarm on Geno Smith, in all honesty. I think he has a clear ceiling to what he can bring to the team. But I said the same thing about Pete Carroll. I think that they can win. I think they can stabilize the offense and do things positively. But as far as them getting used to the promised land, I think the ceiling might be a playoff team once they get the roster completely right with the quarterback that they have and the coaches they have. That might be it. However, that's much better than what they've experienced in the past 10 to 15 years. So, hey, beggars can't be choosers, right? So, hey, they can't. If Geno Smith can play well enough to make them a playoff team in the next 1 or 2 years, you got your money's worth. And Pete Carroll stabilizing the room and getting rid of dysfunction out of the building, that will be the building blocks for the team moving forward. So I would say, at least for the time being, they're trending in the right direction. So the trade was what it was. They got a better quarterback in the room, and they will, definitely win more games in 2025, in my opinion. All right, so getting down to the coaching changes, we talked about Pete Carroll this whole time. So, of course, Pete Carroll is the head coach now, replacing Antonio Pierce. He brings over Chip Kelly from college to be his offensive coordinator, and they bring in Patrick Graham to be the defensive coordinator. Three great hires, 3 great coaches. I like it all. From a coaching perspective, based upon who they had in the previous regime. So yeah, definitely upgraded there. So that would, to me, holistically and morally makes it a better team and a better organization. Again, you have better structure. So if nothing else, you're going to be well coached, and they should get the most out of this roster. But I do still believe that they're building. So with that being said, let's look at the schedule. There's some tough games on the schedule. The division is playing the NFC East. Of course, you got to play each other, things of that nature. So there's some rough games on here. They start out with the Patriots, though, so I think they got a good shot at playing and winning their first game of the season. But then you turn around and play the Chargers on Monday Night Football, so I think that's going to be a tough one for them. Then the Commanders right after that, then the Bears right after that. So I think there's going to be 3 tough games. So, yeah. Then you get a reprieve playing the Colts and the Titans week 5 and 6. So I think those are winnable games, but then you get to follow up with the Chiefs before the bye. So that's a rough one. Jaguars, I think that's a good one that you can probably get depending on what the Jaguars do. Broncos going to be a tough one. Dallas is going to be a tough one. The Browns can be had. Got the Chargers again, then the Broncos again. You got the Eagles week 15, then the Texans week 16, and the Giants, who can be had in week 17, depending on who's the quarterback. And then you round out the season with the Chiefs. So I see about a 6 to 7 win window here, maybe 8 if they're lucky. They can split one division game or 2. But yeah, it's gonna be a rough one. I just think they just happen to be building at the wrong time and to play these tough teams, right? And the division being tough. But I do believe that they definitely should be trending upward and have a better season than they did in 2025. So they shouldn't be picking us high in the draft. So overall, man, the season grade is I give them a solid A. And I think the regime is definitely changed. I think it's definitely doing well. I think it's trending upward. I think they still have holes in the interior D line, linebacker, and safety outside of Jeremy Chin. But I do believe that an O-line is revamping. That's another thing. They don't have a wide receiver, number one wide receiver either. So you got some buildings to do. But I do think that they can fight and be decent with good coaching. I think that even teams that don't have legit and elite weapons in every facet can still be good and play solid football overall if you're well coached. Again. So I think that that's what they're going to lie their head on. They should probably be competitive in the games I listed. They're going to be competitive at in the games they're going to be playing tough opponents that might likely lose. Again, not having a number one receiver, your best receiver being Brock Bowers is going to be a problem for certain facets of moving the ball. Can't run the ball every down, and the D line interior is going to be a problem trying to stop the run. And their secondary in the safety room is going to be a work in progress. So yeah, so you got some work to do, but I see the vision. I see the vision of what Pete Carroll's trying to do. Give them one more year and another solid draft. They'll be right there in the running. So we'll see how things go. But I give them, like I said, between 6 and 8 wins at the height. I will go if the over is 6.5, I will go under. I will go under just to be on the safe side. But I do believe they could have the ability to win the 6 7 games this year. For sure. So that's gonna wrap it up, man. The AFC West is wrapped up. The NFL previews are wrapped up. If you're looking for the Hit Squad, as always, man, here's our socials, man. If you want to hit these guys up for Commanders, Chiefs, or Chargers news, please do so on X or Twitter. If you're looking for the Lockdown Defense Sports Network, there's all our social media platforms here. Hit that subscribe button as always. Let that YouTube algorithm know we're doing big things out here. We're trying to grow the channel to higher heights and deeper depths, man. And we'll be back next week with more NFL content. The NFL preseason is ramping up. Next week, all teams will be playing preseason games, so we got a lot of things to cover there. So we'll be getting into it. We'll be getting things rolling right into the NFL season, man. So as always, man, like I said, hit that subscribe button and let the YouTube algorithm know we're doing big things. And we'll be right back with you next Monday with another video. But in the meantime, between time, I'm your boy, Coach Defense. And as always, you got to do one thing well. Step up and lock it down.